good afternoon if you are here in Europe, or good evening. Good evening if you're following us from Asia, or if you're following us from the United States or South America, wherever you're from. This is the 9th edition of the Free Market Roadshow, the digital edition. We started back in March after the lockdown. And I like to remember this story because, you know, we were supposed to meet in Rome with a big symposium exactly in 2 weeks from now. And then the lockdown happened and Barbara called me and we said, we got to cancel. And then we said, why don't we go digital? And here we are. We started early March, and this is the 9th show that we come up with. And we basically cover a lot of topics, from intellectual property to innovation, to the bailout, to the recovery funds. Very interesting topic with also a lot of great discussion. What's the purpose? The purpose is, of course, to enhance the debate within the Free Market Roadshow and the digitalization. We're happy because today we have a large family. We have many events happening at the same time. And, you know, we are going to end at the end of May. Why? Because in June, we might again meet each other around Europe. Thank you very much for everybody that is following us. Don't forget, we are live here on Zoom, open to everybody. And as well, we are live on Facebook. The event is going to be recorded. And you are also, as an attendee, free to leave question or comments through our chat or through our question and answer room. If you are following us on Facebook, you're very welcome. There's only one problem. You can't leave questions or comments that we can answer. You can leave, of course, any comment that you want. Today, we're talking about sustainable nutrition, how to feed the planet, you know, safeguarding the environment. This is a very interesting topic that, in a way, we have never kind of touched within the Free Market Roadshow family. But we did in Italy with Competere, and I'm happy that Barbara and all the team in Vienna accepted this to bring this topic here and to open up for discussion here. What's the purpose? The purpose is to enhance the debate around nutrition and around sustainability. And we know it's a very tense debate. There's a lot of discussion, particularly online. Unfortunately, mostly online and not offline. It would be nice to have offline and to have very constructive discussion that can enhance the way we nurture the planet and the way we provide and promote sustainability. And, you know, in the free market community, there's a lot of skepticism around climate change, but this time we want to bring in a very, you know, a very open and clear debate on this that can help enhance the debate. We started from a different approach. And the approach is not there's a planet to be saved. The approach is there's 7.6 billion people that need to, in a way, to eat. And so this is why today we start with Francesco Visioli, that is professor in Padua of human nutrition. And then we have Cinzia, Chiriaco, again from Italy, from Viterbo, from the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. And then on the biodiversity side, we have a new friend, because it's the first time I meet her, and I met her online, actually, in one of these discussions that are going on online, that is Michelle Desilets. And Michelle has a very interesting and exciting job that is very different from what we do. It's more on the ground, but I thought it was very interesting to have her here. And please be free to make questions, and you know, we'll try to provide all the answers. If we are not able to provide these answers, we'll take another step next time. But let me start from, and again, we have 45 minutes, so we have to be short. Why 45 minutes? Because you guys get tired online, and you know, there are people following us from all around the world. Some in the US or in South America usually wake up early and they're they need coffee. And some in Asia are going to bed in our big family. And I see already there are a lot of people that have joined us, and I'm sure there's a lot of people as well on Facebook. Professor Francesco, people we are, and where do we get all the food, and what kind of food? You know, I was very interested in reading the Eat Lancet study some time ago, and was giving kind of guidelines of what we should eat. And it seems that in Europe or in the US we eat too much, but there's also other places where they eat too little, and actually there is no food. Where do we get all this food?
Very good question. If you can show my slides. In the meantime, I would like to welcome everyone. Good morning. Pues, buenos días a los que están en Colombia, que veo que Alexandra está conectada desde Colombia. And yeah, great pleasure. As we said, we only have 45 minutes, but we try to keep you entertained.
And I will stop you. No, I have the power to stop you. So
yeah, I know you do. So please show my very first slide. The very first slide. No, very first one. Top. Go. Keep going. Almost.
This one.
Okay. So this is a very important one, I think. What's happening? It's happening that poverty is decreasing worldwide. Worldwide, there are very few people. I mean, there are still 800 million people who are technically poor, but this is a great achievement of humanity. We are bringing people out of poverty. Show the next one, please. And these people, yeah, one more slide. Okay, this goes along with the percentage of people who are undernourished. And this is, I think, again, a great achievement of humanity. Less or fewer people are becoming hungry. Fewer people are poor. And what do? Next one. Well, they eat. Of course they do. They must eat. They are coming out of poverty, and finally, for the first time in their lives, they eat. What do they eat? Mostly meat. Look at the very top panel, the black line. Worldwide, meat consumption is increasing. It's increasing in China. All countries that are coming out of poverty are eating more and more. So as Pietro just said, we need to provide food. We need to provide high quality food, and we need to do it in a sustainable way. The planet cannot keep eating that much meat. I'm not saying this as a nutritionist, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but it's not the topic of the day. The planet cannot sustain all this increase in meat consumption. Sooner or later, we will crack. But still, we need to provide food to all these people coming out of poverty. And how do we do that? Next one. Several obstacles. We still have several hurdles to overcome to provide great diet, sustainable diet, enough food, but in a sustainable way. The first thing we should do, next one, is to fix the supply chain. We waste too much food. Before we produce more food, we need to try to not to waste as much food as we do. Some of it is inevitable. We cannot produce exactly 100% of food that we buy, 100% of food, we eat 100% of food. That's inevitable. Refrigeration is a big problem in several countries. I'm talking about India, for example. India overproduces calories. There are billions of calories thrown away in India, and yet hundreds of millions of people going hungry in India and all over the world. Again, we cannot fix it 100%. But first of all, we should fix the supply chain. Produce food, store it in the proper way, bring it to the market in the proper way. Do not buy too much food. So think of what you eat in a responsible way. Then, next one. Once we do this, again, we should stop throwing away food. We cannot, again, go 100%. It's basically impossible to buy 100% of the food we consume, or to consume 100% of the food we buy, and to produce 100% of the food we buy and be produced. I know it's a joke, but we should stop throwing away food. Concomitantly, next one, we need to develop better and more sustainable way to produce more food. So do not waste food, but also we need to produce more food. That's inevitable. We must feed all these people. Sooner or later, we'll become 100 billion people in the world. How do we produce better and more food? We produce more vegetables. It's not easy because vegetables require land, and there's not enough land. Some people say, hey, we will all become vegetarian. No way, no chance. There's not enough land in the world for everyone to become vegetarian. Vegetables are great. You should mostly eat plants in your diet, but they do not provide enough calories to feed the world. So one way would be, for example, to develop transgenic food. Very controversial issue. It's a very politically controversial issue. Scientifically, it's not. Keep in mind that transgenic food is perfectly safe for consumption. But people don't really like transgenic food, and so we have a long way to go. Next one. We need to feed people fat. Which kind of fat? Again, it's kind of complicated. I'm just giving you the example of palm oil. Why palm oil? Because palm oil, believe it or not, it's the most sustainable fat in the world. Why? Because the palm tree produces so much oil with so little water that it's paradoxically, no, it's not paradoxical, it's science, it's technology. It's the most sustainable oil that you can get. Then it's a lot of saturated fat and blah, blah, blah. But keep in mind that we cannot replace all palm oil in the food chain without impacting the environment. People are convinced it's the other way around. No, it's not. We need to take care of the environment, produce palm oil in a sustainable way. But if we cannot replace all palm oil with other kinds of oil, which are less sustainable, believe it or not. Next one. And we need protein. We already talked about meat. We already eat too much meat. The world is eating too much meat, or part of the world is eating too much meat. Well, we are developing laboratory meat. This is Memphis meat. They have promised they will go to the market in 2021. I don't know if they will make it with this coronavirus thing, but we can grow meat in the laboratory. Next one. We can even grow in a laboratory fish. This is a company called Finless, no fins. And next one. They produce fish. This is fish with no fish. You can get stem cells from a fish fillet, grow them in the lab, and right now it's extremely expensive. But we don't know what will happen in 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, who knows, 20 years. Sooner or later, we will eat fish without fish. Fish that does not come from fish. Nutritious, high protein, good fat, no fish. Because if we eat too much fish, then we overfish. One alternative to feed the world is to use our imagination, our science and technology R&D. Next one. Because I will conclude with just two things that no one wants to hear. And I'm going to tell them. So if you don't want to hear what I'm going to say, you just turn your computer off. No, don't. I'm kidding. So what's the real sustainable diet? What should we do to feed the planet? Next one. Well, believe it or not, the Western world should eat 10 or 15% fewer calories. If we eat less in the West, first of all, we will save money in public health. We will not get as sick as we get, and we will save the planet at the same time. Next one. Another thing that people don't want to hear is to start using birth control policies in developing countries. I know it's politically incorrect to say this, but developing countries are growing very fast. The population is growing very fast. And we cannot sustain to feed all developing countries if they keep growing at this rate. Next one. So the growing population has more impact on the diet than the sustainability. We should work on three prongs, I think. I would say use technology, use science, use our imagination, progress in food production, then eat less, use public health policies, implement public health policies in the West to decrease the amount of calories we eat. And third, try to slow down the growth of the world population. And with the next one, I would like to thank you so much. And I'm in no hurry, so any question you might have, just feel free to write, ask, or whatever. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, Professor Francesco Visioli, very much also for bringing to the table so many arguments that I'm sure, particularly in our community, you say things that somebody, I'm sure, loved and somebody didn't like, particularly on the birth control. There is going to be a big fight, believe me. Particularly there is Ramadan as well in some part of the world. So you touched a big point. I'm here in Rome. I can see the Vatican and it's kind of shaking, but I will take care of that. Thank you very much. Now let me, and of course we're coming with questions to you. So I have several questions, but I'm sure our friends here that are following us on Zoom will have questions too. Let me move to Cinzia, because Cinzia, Professor Visioli, Francesco has already kind of mentioned, sustainability. And he mentioned what we could eat, what it should be done, in order to improve our nutrition. But he touched a point, we need land. So what is the best way kind of for using the land? And I know you down in your lab in Viterbo, not far away from Rome, you've been, studying this for a long time, and you have some great slides. So floor is yours. And again, guys, if you want to make question, either the chat or question and answer section, please.
Yes, thank you, Pietro, and thanks also to Francesco for the very interesting elements that he provided us. And as you and Francesco said, we are about 7.5 billion of people today on the planet, but we are also expected to increase to become almost 10 billion of people by 2050. So in the attempt to respond to the question on how to feed the today and the expected population, I would like to provide also some data from FAO. In this regard, in fact, FAO say us that our agricultural system at the global level already produce enough food to feed the current and also the expected populations. This means that we produce daily food for 10 billion of people. So this means that that our agricultural system at the global level are already highly efficient. So this seems a very good news, very sensational news, but unfortunately it is not. It is not, because we have so many paradoxes in our agri-food system, and Francesco already showed some of them, that make the total amount of food that we daily produce not actually sufficient to ensure food security to all people in the world. The first paradox is the ones that already Francesco explained, is that we have almost 1 billion of people. Exactly, we have today 815 million that suffer malnutrition. This number is decreasing, as Francesco showed, but still we have almost 1 billion of people suffering malnutrition. And on the other side, at the same time, we have 2 billion of people that suffer of the opposite problem of obesity. So this is the first paradox, the first big problem of our food system at the global level, that show also that food is as an unequal distribution in the planet. The second paradox that already was explained by Francesco is the food waste. In fact, today, every year, sorry, we waste about 1.3 billion of tons of food. So this huge amount of food that corresponds more or less to the 30% of food that is daily produced is wasted. We lost this amount of food. And this amount will be enough to feed 4 times the people that today suffer malnutrition. So this is a very big paradox that is also difficult to accept, let's say, also from an ethical point of view, no? Because it's really strange for us to think that we have so much available food, but 1 billion of people cannot have access to it. So it's very sad, also from an ethical point of view. The third paradox is the one that we can call land competition, because the food that is produced, all the food that we produce, is not all used to feed humans. For example, if we look at the case of cereals production, 47% of the global production of cereals is actually used to feed humans. But almost the 40%, another part, is used to feed livestock, animals, or, for example, to produce energy, biofuel, and so on. So this is another big, strange paradox, that we have lots of people that don't have access to the food, but we don't use all the food that we produce to feed the humans. So this is a very strange system, no? A food system that we have at global level. This paradox so makes this global food production system that we have not so efficient as it seems. So what are the possible solutions? The solution also presented by Francesco is one, of course, is to work on reducing food losses and food waste, tending also to go to zero food loss and food waste. And we have already many political instruments that can help on this, both at national or international level, or European level, and so on. But probably this will not be enough, working only on food, on reducing food waste. In fact, if we look at the past trend, the IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, produced a special report on the agro-food system at the global level and the relation with climate change. And in this report is underlined as the food waste, the trend was increased since 1960, with an increase of 40% of the food that is wasted daily. So probably it's also is most likely that this trend will continue also to increase, because also people of the future, the global population of the future, will be even more concentrated, for example, in big urban areas that are very far away from the rural areas. So also the food losses due to transport and storage will probably increase. So this is an imperative solution on which we have to work. We have, of course, we need to work on this, but this solution alone will be not probably enough. Other possible solutions, for example, that are often proposed, are related to the need to increase the amount of food that is produced. But how can we increase the food? We have two ways to try to increase food, two options. One option is to enlarge the land, the area that is cultivated. But this way, this option is not easy, because as we know, the planet is covered mainly by water, and then we have the land, and the land is limited. We cannot cultivate on the sea, on the oceans, no? So we have this limited amount of land, and we already use the 70% of this land of the planet. This means that we have less than 30% of land that hosts natural forest and ecosystem, and we have to preserve, of course, this share of the area. We cannot increase the actual agricultural area that we have at the expenses of forest and natural ecosystem. So this is not a solution. The other solution is to increase the amount of agricultural production per unit of area. That is called the agricultural intensification. However, this concept should be managed carefully, because it could be a dangerous concept from some point of view, because we know that the agricultural production is already responsible of 24% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. You can see here in these pictures, in this orange part, is reported the share of the emission of the sector that in technical language is agricultural, forestry, and other land use sector, the follow sector. So this means that the agricultural production at global level is already responsible of the 24% of the global greenhouse gas emissions.
Exactly.
That is very close, almost the same of the impact on climate in terms of greenhouse gas emission of the energy sector. So we can try to have an agricultural intensification, but we should be very careful to do not increase the greenhouse gas emission from this sector. Therefore, the concept of agricultural intensification should be declined better as sustainable agricultural intensification. That means that we need to try to find a way, and in this case, innovation, research, and imagination also, as Francesco showed us, can help to produce more food, but using the same or even reducing the inputs, the chemical input and other input that we use, and also trying to reduce the impact that we have on the environment and on climate, in particular in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So this is more or less the pictures, the overview of this sector and the possible solution that we have to follow.
Thank you so much, Cinzia. Please stop sharing your slides. They were very, very helpful. Thank you so much. And as you can see in the back of Cinzia, you can see a bottle of wine, because Cinzia family and husband is a big wine producer. So you were promoting, but you know, that's marketing.
I'm sorry.
That's subliminal marketing. Not far, guys, from where I produce my little olive oil, as you know. My sustainable olive oil. Now let me move to Michelle, talking about oil. Michelle runs these NGOs, if I'm called like that, on the Orangutan Land Trust. So very much focused on orangutan. So I know now the discussion is on palm oil. I don't want to be focused on the palm oil war around here, but tell us, how is the biodiversity? And I would feel orangutan in the biodiversity. We cover nutrition, we cover sustainability. Now let me go on the biodiversity side. How is this affecting biodiversity?
Okay, well, of course, it's all interrelated, and we know that for example, the conventional production of palm oil in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, where the orangutan lives, and which happens to represent the two largest producers of palm oil globally, has been catastrophic for orangutans and their habitat. There's no denying this. And so as we talk about feeding the world, we need to think about how do we achieve that while still maintaining the biodiversity that is critical for our planet's function and the ecosystems. And so because of those impacts on biodiversity, orangutans in particular, and their rainforest habitat, I mean, that's my motivation for what I've been doing for the past 16 or more years, looking at the palm oil issue in earnest. And I think what we need, I meant to say, I do have some slides. Do you mind putting them on?
Yeah, sorry. I was forgetting about your slide. Give me a second and I'm coming with your slides right away. Sorry.
Right. So while you're putting that on, and you can,
Here they are.
Let's see, it's coming on. There we go. So as we see some of the impacts of displaced orangutans, the devastation of their rainforest homes. And if you go to the second slide, what science has told us is that orangutans are predominantly found outside of protected areas in Malaysia and Indonesia. And that means that we're finding them in landscapes that have been fragmented by other uses, most notably oil palm. In fact, we have found that more than 10,000 orangutans in Borneo alone live in areas allocated for industrial palm. So any solution to saving the orangutan has to look at how we save them where they are found and what's there where they are found, and that's oil palm. So we believe, like most scientists, conservation experts in tropical rainforests and biodiversity, that the best solution for the survival of these species is sustainable agriculture and sustainable palm oil. So what does that mean? Well, under the roundtable on sustainable palm oil, we're talking about, if you can go to the next slide, we're talking about palm oil that has been shown to be free of deforestation, free of peatland clearance, and free of human exploitation. So if I go back to the science, we know that these orangutans can survive in these fragmented landscapes. They can't live exclusively in oil palm. And so what we need to do is accommodate them where they are found. They can travel across these plantations, they can cause minimal damage. And what we need to ensure is that they can move about freely without being killed in the first place and be able to find mates and find food. So we're working with major growers, RSPO members, some of the largest suppliers of palm oil in the world, and under what's called the Pongo Alliance, the Palm Oil and NGO Alliance. And there we look to ways that not only do we ensure that the companies are doing no harm to their orangutans, but they're actually actively contributing to their survival. And this might be through enhancing forested areas within the estates with more fruiting trees to help the orangutans, or connecting up forest patches. So responsible production, as defined by the standard of the RSPO, goes to one level of protecting the animals. We've worked very hard to ensure that that is a robust standard that includes no deforestation, that protects rare, threatened, and endangered species. And then the the Pongo Alliance goes even further. If you could go to the next slide, please. I need to see it because it tells me what I'm saying next. So we believe also that there we go. Okay, so palm oil is here to stay. We've already talked about, the other panelists have talked about using the land that's allocated for agriculture intensively, and about yields, getting the most product out of the same parcel of land. And palm oil, by virtue of its high yield, the highest yield of any edible oilseed crop, is the right choice if it's produced sustainably. If we replace it with other oils, we're going to find that we need more land. So what we call on is for all the stakeholders, all the supply chain members of the palm oil industry play their part in ensuring that the production and consumption of palm oil is sustainable. Next slide, please. And again, my computer is slow, so maybe you're seeing the slide before I am. So
we are.
I'm so sorry. So we've already talked about what sustainable palm oil means in the briefest of terms: no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation. And of course, it's much more complicated than that. It's several, well, over 100 pages of indicators and so forth. We, like most NGOs and experts working on this issue of sustainable palm oil, do not support a blanket boycott of palm oil for a number of reasons. First of all, it's quite impractical from a consumer's point of view. Okay, here in the EU, food products containing palm oil must declare, in fact, any vegetable oil that's used must be declared on the ingredients list on the package. So you're going shopping, you need to read every list. It's a bit of a hidden ingredient. It's not like picking up a jar of coffee or a bar of chocolate, where you're looking at the coffee or chocolate. You're going to find it as a hidden ingredient in about 50% of products, packaged products in the supermarket. And derivatives, of which there can be a few hundred, of palm oil are labeled using their chemical names. So the idea of reading through labels of every single product you buy and deciding whether you're going to purchase it or not is not really practical from a consumer point of view. Now, it's also ineffective. I really doubt that enough consumers around the world, in fact, despite calls from well-meaning people for boycotting palm oil, that's not picked up any traction. It hasn't slowed down palm oil production one bit. Even companies that are using free from claims are not really making any impact, any positive impact on what's happening on the ground. And the message, let's say you put your chocolate bar or your biscuit back on the shelf because it contains palm oil, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, that enough people do this, that companies are compelled to look at their ingredients or the industry is going to change. Well, first of all, I don't think it's going to get, that message is going to get there. I think the message is, oh, we're not selling this product. We need to make a new advertising campaign or a different packaging design. Okay, let's say that we get enough momentum, millions of people around the world are boycotting palm oil, and the palm oil industry comes to a grinding halt in the tropics. Well, these countries need to produce food, they need to produce income, they are feeding a global population. And remember, palm oil is the only affordable cooking oil for many rural poor in places like Indonesia. So they will turn to another crop. And as we've shown in other slides and other presentations, these other crops are more land hungry, and that will put even greater pressure on the forest and biodiversity. If you can go to the next slide, I forgot about my slides. And so we really call upon companies, manufacturers, retailers, the consumers to understand there's no quick fixes to the palm oil. The slow fixes is ensuring sustainable production and consumption. The impacts of going away from palm oil and choosing alternatives are no solution. We believe that the best alternative to palm oil is sustainable palm oil. Next slide, please. And I'm still waiting for my slide on my page.
Here they come, here they come.
Just a quick word that we know in Italy, especially, there's a large movement towards PR campaigns that are celebrating companies moving away from palm oil. As somebody concerned about the impacts on the ground, I find this deceptive and counterproductive. Removing palm oil does not save orangutans, does not save rainforests. Choosing sustainable palm oil does. Next slide, please. I think it just talks about.
Yeah,
Peter.
the countries
There are
producing.
other reasons why a boycott is not really a solution. We could talk more about that maybe in Q&A. And then the final slide is just say thank you and encourage people to be choosing sustainable palm oil as a way to sustainably feed the growing demand for oilseed crops across the world.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I'm so great to my social media manager because he's the one that indicated, you know, I'm not a big follower of online discussion, but you told me there was this big debate going on and you were very active in this. And so it's hopefully it's a friendship that starts from there. But, you know, we follow very much the topic of sustainability. And some people in our community are saying there's no sustainability, or what is sustainability? But when you think about, for instance, sustainable palm oil or sustainable in other industry, how do you measure this sustainability in your field, for instance, with the orangutan?
Well, for the orangutan, there are specific indicators under the RSPO, Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, and the Palm Oil Innovation Group Charter, and so forth. And those are independently audited by certification bodies. But of course, sustainability is an intertwined, comprehensive concept. It's a concept of continuous improvement. I think that needs to be noted. It's not a silver bullet solution. Certification is not a silver bullet solution, but the concept of continuous improvement, moving towards more sustainable practices and replicating those in other supply chains with other species in other regions is the way forward. So again, in terms of palm oil, it's that for us, for orangutans, that which doesn't cause deforestation and doesn't harm rare, threatened, and endangered species. But of course, we cannot practice conservation in isolation, say it's only about orangutans forests. There are 16 million people who depend upon palm oil for their livelihoods, either directly or indirectly. So we also have a responsibility to them and their food security, their ability to purchase food in the marketplace.
And before I move to Cinzia, sorry to interrupt, but we have a really short time. But
sorry.
No, it's okay. And thank you very much, and thank you for the great job you're doing with obviously with the orangutan around the world. But I assume that, you know, the threat to orangutan is not just caused by palm oil. There's many other, you know, I assume industries. So why there's so much attention on palm oil?
Historically, it's been a very visual issue. When I first started in the 1990s, I was rescuing orangutans, and I've rescued orangutans that have been horrifically injured or starving at the hands of unsustainable palm oil plantations. And those images go around the world. Palm oil is, we can't deny it's a major threat, but it's not the only threat. At least equal, if not more so, is the direct killing and hunting of orangutans. And that doesn't get as much attention. It's almost like there's no one to blame except for some faceless hunters.
And also, lucky for you, orangutans, and luckily for us, let's say, are in Asia particularly, and there are other countries like Africa where there are obviously other problems, or South America where there's no orangutan, or actually palm oil plantation, for what I was told, are not growing where there are where there were forests. So thanks again, Michelle, for the great job you're doing, and also for your advocacy work. Let me come again to Cinzia on the same question, sustainability. Here we're talking a lot about sustainability. Our kind of obsession is sustainability, and you know, within our community there is a big fight around that. But is there a way to measure sustainability? Because again, in what I read around is there is no sustainable palm oil, there is no sustainable, you know, corn. And there's a big fight that I assume is a commercial fight, but is there a way to measure sustainability, and is it a way to work towards sustainability?
Yes, for example, if we look at the climate from the climate change point of view, a good indicator to measure sustainability could be the carbon footprint that measures the amount of carbon of greenhouse gas emissions that are produced for producing every product, and in particular also agro-food product. So this is a technical approach with it is called life cycle assessment that go to measure the greenhouse gas emission from all the cycle of the life of the product, from the cradle to grave, it is said. So this is, for example, a technical indicator, and it starts also to be seen on the label of some product. There is, if you pay attention to some product at the supermarket when we go to buy food, on the label of some product, it's possible to start to see this indication on the amount of carbon, of CO2 emission that are related to the production. So this is a useful indicator. It's not so maybe always easy to understand for the final consumer, but it is starting to.
Exactly. My question, and it's one of the questions I got also, I get questions on everywhere, including my WhatsApp, and please make questions here. When we talk about consumer, is the consumer educated for this concept of sustainability?
Yeah. Of course,
you work with that, so you should have an answer.
Some consumers, there is a share of the global consumers that pay good attention on this topic, but in general, it's also difficult to pretend to ask to the final consumer to understand. Also because on average, we don't have so much time when we go to buy food. We have a life. Beside this period of COVID situation in which we are all at home, but usually we do a life very, very full of things to do, and with not so much time to spend in the supermarket to understand very well. So of course there is a level of education in the consumer that is not so high. And we have to work also on this educational policy, let's say. So we have to increase the awareness of the final consumer on this. But on the other side, we have also to work in general to make our food even more sustainable. So to do not give to the final consumer the only responsibility to choose the few sustainable food that is possible now to find. So if we produce more food sustainable in general, then the consumer will probably buy automatically more food that is more sustainable. So it's something that on which we have to work. Political instrument and tool should help on this. We have strategies. Now we have also in these days will be published the farm to fork strategies.
Yeah,
example,
we read yesterday from the EU. Yes.
Yeah, from the Green Deal agreement of the European Green Deal. So we have these instruments that are moving on this direction. But of course, sustainability is something that can be measured and also communicated, and we hope that will increase in this sense.
Thank you, Cinzia.
In relation to palm oil, it's also interesting because in this carbon footprint, in the traditional palm oil cultivation, we know that also, as Michelle showed, palm oil production was responsible of a great part of deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia especially. So if we put in the carbon footprint in this indicator that we can calculate the emissions coming from this deforestation, then traditional palm oil has a big impact in terms of greenhouse gas emission. But if we study the sustainable palm oil that certifies that any deforestation occurred to produce that palm oil, then this carbon footprint will become very, very lower with a very low impact with respect to other alternatives of oil. So in this kind of indicators, we can try to see the sustainability of the production process.
Yes, and we have to say that there's, the industry have been in every area. I've been doing incredible, step forward in the process of sustainability, in improving global supply chain, and it's been amazing how in this period of lockdown, large supply chains have kept working, including a lot of countries around the world, and working hard to reducing, the impact on the planet. I want to come to you, Francesco, for ending this wonderful debate.
Well,
and again, we are already at extra time, and they're on the fork. From the farm to the fork, I was waiting for some questions that are, our community is very skeptical when things come from Brussels. There's always, smell of bureaucracy there and too many regulations. So let's not get into that debate for the moment. There was a question by Kim here that was talking again about our palm oil and RSPO. what happens to other certification, for instance, for soybean that is grown in South America. So of course, this is not just regarding, you know, the plantation, but it's regarding everything.
Yeah, anything. It's very difficult to measure sustainability. You know what? Now I will come back to soybean in 30 seconds. But you know what's the most sustainable food in the world? White sugar. Really? But why? Oh, it provides a lot of calories with very little water. So what I mean is it depends on how you measure sustainability. If you measure it per calories, then sugar is more sustainable than tomatoes, for example. And so it's very complicated. You know, you need to put everything in the basket. Going back
but then we are taxed. You know, we talked with the last sustainable nutrition event we had last week. We were actually talking about sugar and sugar taxation. And so you're saying sugar is sustainable, but then
not. I'm kidding. It's just provoking thought, you know. But it's not nutritious, you know. But what I mean, if you just measure calories, sugar is super sustainable. And I'm just kidding. But no, not really, because it provides a lot of calories with very little water. If you measure sustainability by water usage. But going back to the soybean thing, you know what soybean cultivated in South America is used for? To feed American cows. And also, let's go back to, we didn't even start talking about glyphosate, for example. People are really concerned about glyphosate. Why do we use glyphosate? Oh, to kill herbs? Not really. No. Just to dry up crops. So when you produce soybean and also I think wheat, they dry it up. We spray it with glyphosate to dry it up so they can grow twice a year. Why should they grow twice a year? To feed cows in the US. So what I mean is that the whole world should and must move toward sustainable diet. Eat less meat, more vegetables, but we cannot eat just vegetables. First of all, it's not good for human health. And then, as we said, there's not enough land. So again, the issue is very complicated. The soybean issue is tightly linked to meat production. So we all talk about palm oil for human consumption, but as the I can't remember who posed the question, but he's right. We should go back and talk about the whole diet, how we can make the whole planet eat sustainable and healthier diets, produce more food in a more sustainable way. And soybean is one notable example.
Francesco, I want to end with you thanking everybody, but very actually my internet connection is getting unstable right now, but you said something, so we conclude before a dinner here in Europe, after dinner in Asia, and let's say pre-lunch in US exactly. And South America. You said something about transgenic. I read everywhere transgenic is horrible, no transgenic, bad transgenic, but you said they are not bad.
Oh gosh, it's complicated. I mean, then we need next time we meet, we talk about transgenic. So we've been using transgenic products for 23 years now, and there's no issue of safety. And transgenic, one thing must be very clear. All transgenic products are evaluated for safety. So they're not just thrown into the market or they enter the market like, hey, we have a new transgenic thing. No. They undergo a very strict and very thorough process of safety evaluation. So as of today, maybe tomorrow, we don't know, but as of today, there's no health concern, none, zero. I mean, if someone has a health concern, please send me proof of it. There are some data here and there, but right now it's a political debate. It's a political issue. Then who knows what will happen in the future.
Thank you so much, Francesco. Let me thank you very much for joining us this time, and I hope we will be able again to meet each other and probably in a real conversation. As I said in the past, at Cinzia house, so we can taste some of her wine. I'll bring the oil. Yes. I'll bring the oil. And then with Michelle as well. Thank you so much. Hopefully you will not be in Asia, but you will be joining us around Europe. Thank to all the people that have been following us here on Zoom or on Facebook. I see people from all around with all different names, so I assume from all around this world. As usual, we're a big community, free market roadshow, digital edition, thanks to the Austrian Economic Center and to Competere here in Rome and Austrian Economic Center from the great Austrian School up in Vienna. We're a real European community in this case. I want to thank Martin for allowing us to run the show, and Victoria and Britt, and particularly Barbara Kohn from Vienna. You know, they still think we are part of the big Vienna family, and I'm happy for that. But right now I'm here in Rome, dear Barbara. So thank you, everybody. It's recorded, will be broadcasted online. We'll meet again. Please join us next time. And I will also make this slide as there was a question available for everybody. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Next time.